Good morning, class. Welcome to Homeroom with Unc and Market Monk. Morning, P. How was your week?
Really good. Started with crypto and then that caught that move in solar. Just a really massive day there. If were adding when we were talking about it, just a lot of that work from the election talk playing out. So yeah, I did really well there. Stayed away from chips, just based on our conversation last week, and saw a pretty decent pullback in those. Still like a lot of those names. I just think that this move back was kind of inevitable with some of the China FUD and just how hard they've run the past few months.
Yeah, good week over here. It's that space thesis still panning out, and just being familiar with that sector. I forget why I researched it when I did a long time ago, but man, being able to not necessarily high point all of them, but from the start of it, ASTS, all the way here to PL this week. That's been great. Hims is really good for me. I'm it just sometimes it works out to take profit, and then that was one of those scenarios where
Yeah,
people always ask, well, what if it just keeps going? Well, what if it doesn't? And I have a when I have the money and not giving it back, that just kind of helps my psychological thing a little bit better
yeah.
than missing. It's like when you round first and you go to second and you get to second, and you're like, fuck, I could have got a triple. Well, I'm still on second base, dude. You know what I mean? It's a base hit and I'm fucking scoring. So
So yeah,
good
our
for me. And then read the report. Sorry, P. Read the report.
oh yeah,
Read the report's been where it's at. Front ER has not been great for me unless you're way early. And man, the timing on Nova. Normally I don't drop things and Unk notes that you have to be quick on. But yeah, I think we kind of seen that at the same time. So good week overall for what it was.
right. Well, I think with Nova, it's unique for us to jump on a stock that drops 50% a day so
Yes,
soon.
yes, yes.
But there was just so much else there, and it was just the reason it went down. This perception of Trump and solar, just not is overdone. I mean, especially given the positioning on those stocks that whales already have for way out into leaps and things like that. And so a move down like this, even in Nova, isn't really the end of the world for them. And so they try to find some equilibrium and bring those back up. And it's just a sector that responds really well um, to levels. First Solar, kind of the Rolls Royce of that sector, just by far to me, just as in terms of strength of the company, fundamentals, all that. And you can just see, 200 tests kind of gearing up, and got that a few times. So yeah, that was really good. I The one for me that everyone's on that uh, you got people really wanting to short it right now is Palantir, and they just point to the PE and all that, and yeah, I still have some from way back on our original ads on that. Gotten rid of most of that at this point because I do think it's getting a little overblown here. But I also I don't really think that there's a good short entry for a stock like that when it's up here. And saw the same thing with SMCI. People started wanting to short that at $400 or $500. Well, it ran to 1,200. I don't think that was really a good short again until the trend clearly changed, and that was to me even back dipping back to 800, and then that starting to break down, and I started to stay away from it at that point. Um, but yeah, I mean it's just the psychology of people who, like, you miss a move, and especially with options making it so easy to go short, that they're like, well, I'm gonna catch a big win on the other side of this, and very hard to do. It's just hard to get a big sustained move down. Usually you miss the first big move, so then you try to get in, and then it rallies, and then you lose out in your position, and then it does break down further and keep going. So no, that's just not the way to trade. If you're not in early on shorting, I think you just got to wait for it to respond to some levels. And if you don't have any levels for the next 30-40%, then I guess you're just not trading that. You got to get used to that.
Yeah, that's story of my life over here. I mean,
Yeah,
that's just what it is.
right.
I mean, I don't erase my lines for a reason. Palantir is just a bigger boat. Not to talk too much about it one stock, but I mean, you're talking about
Yeah,
a $200 million float in MSTR to a $2 billion float in Palantir, and um,
yeah,
it's tough to turn around in general. But I mean, I wouldn't do it up here. Why would you? It makes no sense. I mean, even if
right. Yeah.
the metrics are a little skewed. Um, what you just had something, I lost it. Spy though. Um,
Yeah.
it's consolidation last week. It came from somewhere, um, and I think we continue to see that. But there's better places to play, sectors, things that have already pulled back, stuff like that. That I think people just, I mean, Twitter completely misses, um, and I think we'll continue to stay there because, all right, if you listen to us in the election talk and maybe a little bit on the week before that in voice, pretty adamant. Like with Trump wins, we're supposed to get a pump. Um, well, for me it came a little early, expecting the pullback, and then with the
Yeah.
news that we're not going to get rate cuts, I think you're going to continue to see the the cycle that we're currently in. But the stuff that you want is stuff that pulls back to the good levels or that has an overall thesis. And our room's full of plenty of those. I mean, I'm comfortable with saying them here. Even people who watch, they'd have to do a lot of research to be on the names we're on. But like the uranium thesis is brilliant right now. The solar thesis, I think, with Trump, which we talk about a lot, and just being so close to Elon. I mean, who thinks Trump's a smart guy? No one. Not even his fans think he's a smart
Yeah.
guy. They think he's a
Right.
savvy guy, but not a smart guy. And like
Yeah.
he's standing next to a guy that's really pro solar, pro electric. I mean, if you think he didn't talk about dumping the rate, or excuse me, the tax credit on EV without talking to Elon first, you're a bit crazy. And Elon's on record for saying it's better for him because other people can't compete with him. So, yeah, I think the market really doesn't know what Trump's going to do, and I said that during that session. We need for someone to ask him, "What are you going to do in your first 90 days?" I mean, they know all the political shit. Build a wall, stop the war, deport whoever. They know all that, drain the swamp, but they don't know what we really are going to put our money into. They just assume oil, and I think that's where the money's to be made for the next, let's say, at least until the first quarter, is
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
early on that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, to me, the energy trade encompasses so much now, and it's so it's tied up with AI being the impetus for needing more power, and that's where nuclear comes in, and solar, and of course oil, and the geopolitical angle of oil, the natural gas price suppression that's going on for geopolitical reasons. Things start to change in Russia. That trade loosens up a bit, I think. So yeah, that's what I that's what I look for. And my whole process is to go through, sector by sector, and healthcare and staples really took a beating just on perception of RFK, and this again. I mean, this is how the political landscape shifts. So we talked about this with weed before, where weed was like pro weed's a Democrat thing, anti weed's the Republican thing. It's not that simple anymore. And when you've got Republicans talking about taking on big pharmaceutical companies, um, food additives, like championing those causes that were sort of your like granola hippie territory in the '90s and early 2000s. I mean, that's kind of a notable shift as well. And then so you look for opportunities there. There are a lot of those big stocks and staples trading near 52-week lows that have a lot of range to the upside and have recognized, levels down here. So yeah, I mean, I definitely, I look for that, and I think that it's a bad time to chase, a bad time to just be late on some of the stuff that's been running when you can just start to move sectors around and catch some better opportunities. And it also is going to help you from getting chopped up on the days where SPY is going to trade in a, in effect, a 0.2% range because the best move happened pre-market. That's going to happen a lot, I think, as well.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing I haven't really said it, but I've picked it up during the ER reports. I hate ER seasons. I don't like to read that much. Just so much reading. Um,
Yeah.
but it's one thing I picked up on the reports like early on, probably last week. I kind of thought it, and this week definitely cemented it. But the guidance is king right now. The numbers really don't matter. It's all about the forward, and that's always told me in the market that the people, they, them, whoever, the guy that raised your stop loss at night, that guy, um, he's already ready. They're already ready. Like they're expecting the good guidance to go forward, that the money's going to come in short term and their stock's going to go up. And if they don't get that, then they take the profit that they've gotten from buying off the bottom and kind of move on to something else if they're not satisfied with the guidance. And I think that's the pullback we're getting and what you're seeing.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, for me, that's great. People are like, oh, well, shit. That's bad. And it's not, no, it's clarity. You should know where to go after that. And you kind of touched based on a point I had when I started this conversation is and I've said it probably, I haven't said it in a while, but I used to say it all the time. But like the A pluses are gone. Like you're not getting the bottom on the A pluses. I mean, when I said that, Nvidia was 140 bucks, but then it reverse splitted 10 to
Yeah.
1. So we're really at
Right.
like 1400 bucks. Like then it's just not coming back. And the same with
Yeah.
even Tesla and Microsoft and Apple. Like those are just, you're going to buy on a higher low. You're not getting that generational bottom as we talked about before. But the B's, I mean, you should see that clearly now. I mean, the proof is in the pudding on that now. But the B's I talked about, maybe the C's, they're still out
Yeah.
there. They're still out there. They're still in a bad spot.
And well,
And
right. Oh, go
and
ahead. Yeah.
and there's some A pluses of the B's and C's, and that was like Roblox Bros. I mean, that's what you're seeing now. So don't like give up. Just understand where you need to fish at, because I think that's more important right now, and plenty of opportunity.
Yeah, and like Twillo is one that comes to mind that was, kind of a B name or B minus name, whatever. But we had pivots on it. It took a long time. I mean, that was why, I mean, shares were really where it was at with that one. And you just wait, and all of a sudden it's up $30 from the pivot, and it's testing 100, and here you're just like, well, I just take some off the table, and I'm good. Roku does that same thing, but on a much faster cycle. But those are a lot of like the mid caps that used to be large caps. Um, looking to kind of level back up. I mean, that's a common setup. Takes more work to define those names, but we've already done a lot of the work on them. I mean, because we've traded these before. We've seen the range, and you just trade that small range with the understanding that it is likely going to break out of that. And especially the more time it spends in our smaller ranges, I've noticed that the move out of it tends to be much bigger once it finally gets there. But yeah, I mean, so to me, looking for the crash in Nvidia, the crash in Apple, the crash in Microsoft, just very very hard to do. It's gonna happen sometime in the next decade, maybe. Still probably won't be as low as it was when our original entries showed up on this. I don't know if Apple's ever going to see the 120s again. I mean, maybe, I don't know, probably 160s, 170, something like that. But but yeah, no, I completely agree. You look at the larger time frames on something like QQQ, it where's your short entry on the monthly? That's one thing I would say. So you got to understand if you're looking to be bearish that it's a kind of a short term thing. We're lucky to even string a couple days together of downside right now. So
I gave it to you in last five last week. That's what you get.
yeah, right, yeah, exactly.
It was quick. I mean, it was so
Yep.
quick. It was so quick that one of the ones that was on my short list last week is now on my other list this week. That's how short it was.
Yeah,
And I think that's what you're
and
gonna get. You're gonna get pullbacks that are gonna. I mean,
yeah,
they could. I mean, I mean, not against what you just said with those bigger names. Except for with like Nvidia, I think you could get a decent pullback, but your decent pullback might be the 100 psych, and that's still a
well,
thousand
that's
bucks pre-split. Like
well, no,
that's
we
not a good entry. That's above where I sold it at. Like, but that's a 40% drop from where we are. It's huge. It's going to seem like the sky is falling. In all reality, it's really not much of a pullback from anything. That's the
well we
only
agree
one.
there.
The
I'm
rest of them,
saying like
the rest of them, I don't think you're getting any kind of pullback on.
I mean I'm just saying you're not getting Nvidia $30,
Well, you're not.
post split.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's three. You're not even getting it 75. I don't think.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I mean, that
Yeah.
would be a 50% cut here. But I mean, that's the one name I think we could get a, a chunk. But the chunk, it's not much, and I think that has to do with the news with the other company. But that's a story to be talked about. That's another time. um,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Right.
um, Yeah, yeah. So I'm with you. Any pullback though in the majority of the names is just going to lead to a higher low. That I mean, it won't be a bad entry, but it's I don't know. There's plenty of fish out there that you can still get 3 to 4x off of. I always say in 3 to 5 years, but I mean the way this market's been going, it might only take you 6 months.
Oh yeah. I mean my targets for time are usually fairly conservative, and it happens faster. I mean that's just been going on for a while for us, but I think it's better to be that way than the other way. I mean, especially because I know that people look at options, and I just want them to kind of understand that you know you you can't go shorter time just because the option's cheaper. The trade's just not going to work in the same way.
Yeah, no, for me, that's a good topic. For me, I try to have financial goals. So
Yeah,
that's usually my target. Like I don't want to hang out in trades beyond that. You just kind of rinse and repeat it or trade it again. Um, so when I do throw a time on it, I mean, I usually give myself a lengthier time so it has time to perform. In my head, it positions it or gets it ready for the ups and the downs that you're gonna have. And then you have to obviously be savvy with your entries and your buy-ins, and give yourself some room there as well. To be honest, a lot of the longer ones. I mean, I don't want to throw no like dollar amounts out there, but I usually don't get even close to 100% of my position, but that position's usually pretty big. So it's a different setup of a trade as opposed to um, one that I just have. All right, I can put in my what I posted last week. I can put in 2,500 here and turn it into 3 grand, here this week. And that's so for
yeah.
me. For me, if you do have to kind of separate the ones you want to trade and invest in as opposed to the ones that are just currently available with range to make money on. I mean, that's because they're all crap. They're
Oh,
all remember every stock is shit. I ain't said that in a long
right.
time.
Yeah.
Well, that's still a thing. That didn't change.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think one more thing on sectors till we get to some boring stuff. Kind of like understanding the how a sector is constructed and what particular stocks do and how they affect other ones. That to me is really vital to what anything I do. And and some sectors are kind of more complex than others in this regard. Like you look at semiconductors, if that company's actually making something physical, that's like the first thing that you have to know, because the guidance on those on foundries and equipment stocks have really been what have kind of set the tone. And so when ASML and AMAT, gave kind of shaky guidance, you saw AMAT drop 10% on earnings, like it was nothing, and then it'll kind of set back up. And then on the other side, all of the hype and hopium in the like the fabless chip designers of all these great things that our chips can do and all the great demand that's gonna happen. I mean, it's a little bit like SaaS. Like you don't have a warehouse of stuff stacking up that you got to mention and talk about. You don't really have to deal with that if you're just on the kind of the design side. But the issues within the equipment stocks and the foundries and the wafers and all that shit, like it works its way into the other ones, and it limits their upsides, and it eventually does drive their pullback. And so this plays out over 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 months, whatever. But that's where you get your pullback, and that's where they start to hit their levels. And so so for sectors, this kind of thing doesn't come out of nowhere. It takes a while to work its way through the sector. And the first place I ever learned that was with oil, where it matters a lot if you're talking about, like, is this some deep sea drilling rig? Is this oil? Is it transport? Is it refineries? Midstream? Like learning all of that stuff is important, rather than just being like, this sector's hot, pick one. I mean, sectors do kind of go full send sometimes. But lastly, even within that, crypto services, crypto miners, very different thing. Those stocks have responded, dramatically differently throughout this whole run. And I think that as a trader, these people tend to just kind of lock into one.
One, yeah.
That's their one stock, and this is just not how it goes. Even among those miners, we're pretty damn good at picking the right ones, and I don't think it's luck. So if anyone actually wants to learn, there is actually a process to learning that. This isn't just alphabet soup of tickers. These companies do real things, and understanding how they fit within a sector, understanding their market cap and float, and their history, like all of that plays into which ones you're going to trade and when.
Yeah, I always I, through half the conversation, I was like, I can't wait to the end of this so I can say I don't do none of that shit, P. But um, I've always like tried to pay attention or understood the geopolitical or just the news or the market breadth or whatever, those kind of overviews, kind of a broader to understand what I think is going to happen or move. Um, but I always approach it from taking your information, because again, I kind of lean on that statement. I don't do a lot of that stuff. I really don't. Um, I take your information and dive into the sector and look for things that are on support. That's the only way I know how to put it. For me, I'm looking for like the safest place to hang out to see if the thesis is true. And crypto's easy because the thesis is usually the price of Bitcoin, or some event, but
Yeah.
usually even that event moves the price of Bitcoin. And yeah, I mean that's a great example of us, our work lining up perfectly. When you get the perfect sweet and salty crunchy two mix, that's it, because I've can find stuff that's on a level, and that's just going to be from a safer entry, and you find stuff that just moves in general. So I mean, that's a lot of times you get that, the half read from you, and you're like, well, I'm trading it anyways, and I'm like, well, we're just so far off my level, but they still move. Good. So like your side usually picks direction on stocks well, and I usually just try to find the safest entry, and I think that combo keeps people alive. I don't know how else to say
Yeah. Well,
it.
and it does, our conversations there impact the sizing and style of trade a lot. So coin and MSTR at at
Well, Hut was the last one
120
for me. Was it Hut or Hive?
yeah.
Was it Hut
Yeah, I
or
mean,
Hive?
so when
Yeah, Hut.
coins at 120, and or one, I'm sorry, 165, and MSTR is at 120, 130, something like that. Like I'm just like full position, full like I'm not hedging anything. I'm just buying a bunch of shares here. Then they start to move up, and I'm like, okay, coin 180, coin 220, and you're just and you're kind of like, yeah, I see it, tighter range, room below. So then it's just a different kind of trade. It's an option only trade for me. It's hedged, still does very well,
Hey,
but
on the on Sailor, that was the last week. I was like, you just tell me, I'll believe it, because I mean,
yeah,
you've seen
right,
it enough,
yeah,
and yeah, I think people even got some shares on that one, which is good. I mean,
right,
like a
yeah.
positive trade, positive trade.
Yeah, and that's just a good example of a stock splitting and it being advantageous. I mean, it'd be very difficult to trade MSTR at over 3 grand right now. I mean, like even option side,
Yeah, I
you're
mean,
talking about
hey,
a
one or two shares, 300 to 340. Just take that. I mean, that
yeah,
learn how to simply
exactly.
trade like that. That's a
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't understand why people wouldn't be happy learning that or trading that because it's going to be comfortable. I mean, that
It
$3,000
is,
option is
and I
probably
think,
stressful as shit.
and I kind of just ask people like, well, I mean, you know, like how much of like per hour seems like a good you know rate to you of pay, and if you're making 40 bucks in a couple hours, that's not nothing. I mean, so it's just on these trades. I mean, especially, I mean, gosh, when we start talking about making $300-400 in a day, um, pretty long time in my career before I could pull that off. But to do that in 30 minutes, at the bell, no, they don't pay English professors $500 in 30 minutes. No, our time is not valued at that level by the state of Oklahoma. So I always try to have an appreciation for the returns you can get on this, and being appreciative and willing to just take your money, even if that trade, a week later, that contract was $6,000. Who cares? Not my trade anymore.
Yeah, no, I mean, I used to always have, always brings back and I'm trying to bring back the nostalgia stuff, but I used to always say, man, when I started my business, I used to make $300 a day, maybe 250, 200 even, cleaning gutters.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I started. It was
Mm-hmm.
light work, and I didn't have 5 jobs a week. You know, when I first started,
Yeah.
I was lucky to have two or three, and then you grow, and eventually that became, okay, I got to do 2 of these a day because I got more than five
Yeah.
jobs a week, and yeah, so I mean, you gotta start even this from somewhere, and 200 or 300 bucks a day is great. And when I started like day trading, um, fortunately, it was in that 2020 market, um, and it was pretty easy to hit that. But my man, did I have the wrong rules and styles and all that? I had it completely backwards to what, and a lot of greed. I mean, I even came in back then wanting to do more, but just found it was easier to you know fill the cup, as we say. So
We
yeah,
yeah, for
go ahead, go ahead.
oh yeah, I mean for me, like my entry into trading, it really it came from buying the top on a couple memes and just sort of being like, well, screw this. And then just but still wanting to wanting to learn it, and came across studying options, and I really I kind of learned as the market was going down, and finding strength within that, and that's where the oil trade originally came from, because that was what was strong as tech pulled back. I mean, back then Roku was $400, and
Yeah,
Snow was 300 something, and the stocks I would trade back then. And then on the way down, I learned a lot from you. I was like, coin 200, we got some strength here, and you're just like, you just laugh, you're like, no. And then I'm like, okay, I guess I'll wait. And then our first crypto trades set up when that all really bottomed out, and Bitcoin was 16K or whatever
yeah.
it
I
was.
no, I remember when there was a time when we were early on that I was like, man, I gotta find a way to get this guy to look for bottoms and not tops. Like just like
Yeah,
look
yeah,
at the charts the other way, and like, I mean, through the since then, I mean, we get a million names from Carvana to Mara. Since we want to talk crypto, that you were just it was in the dirt, and you turned bullish on Facebook. Let's not talk about Facebook.
yeah,
All of
yeah.
those, you turned perfect timing on bottom. So, but yeah. I mean, not that you don't flirt with tops, but I think you play with them different now. So
Yeah, no, right, and I think the the all time high chart as a continuation thing. I mean that came, it had to like maybe like 6 8 months after we started our own room. Like I started, kind of seeing some of those kind of setups too,
it's not
and
it's
learning.
not the original style though, right? You had to create a style for those.
I had to create a style because the flow read is different on stuff like that. So yeah, learning that was important, and it's the main thing I talk about with option flow, and it's why so many people give up on it. It's learning. Anyone can see, oh, here's all these buyers, they're buying this contract, but learning which
Sure.
contracts matter and why and when for which stocks, that took time. And so when people approach me about learning how to read option flow, it's like, you can do it, um, but it it takes a lot of time. Like it's like teaching someone to throw a knuckleball or something. You can physically learn how to do it. It takes a lot of practice, and it's a completely different like skill set than a lot of the TA stuff, which TA is such a big thing. I think there, to me, the risk is like trying to do too much, like way too many overlapping indicators on the wrong time frames. I just see that constantly with people on Twitter.
Definitely. It just touched a little bit of a point that I think is good for people, and then we'll move on to some boring shit. But
Yeah,
um, if the style kind of goes over your head every time, or like, well, I've been trading shit. I'm like Unc. I ain't paying attention to that shit.
yeah,
You really need to, and I would start with just a couple of simple things, and the one of the biggest things I think nobody asks, that I think if you ask up front on tickers, you'll be better off. Um, but is this something I can trade once? Is this like a one-time deal, or is this something I'm going to be able to, rinse and repeat and trade over and over and over? And the one that comes to mind, like that, I think most people followed over the last year is Rocket Lab for sure. I mean, I used to pound the table on
yeah,
Rocket Lab at 410, 477. Those numbers are entrenched in my fucking head. Like I don't have to look at a chart. Like I believed in that play. And the second thing is ratio. Always check your ratios. How much room's down to where your upside target is, and as long as that's intact, continue to trade the chart. As long as the range is there. Um, but it's boring. Like it's boring to trade that. But that time I spent on that chart when no one else did, it I don't have to worry about it now. And it's what, 15 $17 somewhere up there.
yeah,
My shares are completely free at this point in time, and it's my decision when to get out of the trade fully. But sector strength is still there for me. But you have to understand each chart individually, whether it's something that, hey, this is a one time like news event trade. I'm just playing the, like, you don't try to trade a mid candle recovery four times. That's a one time trade.
right,
There's one mid candle
yeah,
recovery. I mean, you can check the flow afterwards. Cool, but it's not a trade you're gonna rinse and repeat. Now, when you get a channel like the coin, our $4 coin, 72 and change and 76 and change, that's again, that's a thesis that, hey, I mean, we were talking 280 back then, right, as a 3 to 5 year number, and
yeah,
you've hit that a few times. So I think that's a number one question. If you don't have a style, or you're just kind of doing the same thing on every single ticker, especially options, start asking yourself, is the ratio still intact? And most importantly, is this a long term, like, I'm staying in this, I'm gonna be in and out of this chart building a position, or is this a one and done?
Yes, and I'll close with this on that. With regard to options, I posted the other day that you want to you tend to want to trade options unless it's a one time thing, earnings or whatever. Like it needs to be a stock that you would be okay investing in, and I don't even mean at the price it's currently at. But if it's a stock that you're willing to invest in, that means that the company has an identity, a place within a sector that has some certainty. It's a company that's going to be around 5 years from now. And you might say, well, why do I care if a company's going to be around 5 years from now if I'm doing an option day trade? Um, all of those factors mean that the Greeks on that option contract are going to tend to work in your favor. That it's a lower IV contract. They tend to, the options themselves tend to be affordable, so you can get four or five of them. There's stability there, and what we're looking for, and when I post them, is a move that's bigger on that day or those couple days than that stock normally would do. So John Deere starts moving 2% plus per day. That's unusual for that one. And so, so the option contracts greatly move in your favor, and it's cheap to hedge, and you kind of go from there. Um, you don't want options on Carvana when it's up here, unless it's around a news event or some particular thing on a day, um, because those those options are like a powder keg, and that's already, the fuse is lit and it's going down, and it's just the volatility that's expected there limits what you can really do. I mean, even SMCI is a much better share trade right now because you need that thing to move 5-8% per day for a day trade to be worth it. Um, that's a lot. That's a big move on any stock, of especially one of that size. So that's why that's why things like Pepsi, things like John Deere are so much better for option trades, and people just don't understand that because it's not sexy to talk about stocks like that as far as options go. But there's a method to what I do, and that's at the center of it. You start there. Is this company a good company? And then you do your checklist, and then you'll see the options set up there. So I just encourage people start watching that, start noticing the pattern of companies I tend to post in there.
Yeah, I'm just trying the chart again.
There you go. Yeah, no, that's fine. But you know what? If you're getting into options, you have to consider these things, or you're just gonna get destroyed. If you want to just trade the chart, you go shares, and I go shares too, and I do that a lot. But yeah, I know the attraction options have for people, and you got to take more steps to protect yourself in those kind of trades because options are a zero sum game. Like winner and loser, who sells that contract, who buys it. If you want to get on the right end of that, you do have to put in a little extra work on it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's why I lean on book value a little bit because I'm looking for assets or something tangible. Because if they have anything proprietary, we see Lumen Trade, right? Like
Yeah,
they're not going out of business, or maybe a buyout candidate for somebody. That's usually what I dip into, as opposed to are they going to make it? Because I mean, to be honest with you, most companies don't, and if they do, they are going to get absorbed by a bigger company. Um,
yeah,
the tech is a great example of that. A tech industry through the last 20 years, they just eat their competition. That's why those companies are so big. If you go to entertainment, Disney kind of did the same thing. But yeah, um, what do you have for um, some boring stuff? I got I got
let's
I got my
let's
Google open.
let's talk silver for a second. So you got a nice pullback in silver to $30. We popped in, above. Uh, I was saying 32 when
I don't like that one.
it was significantly lower in like the 24 to 26 area. So so we got that, and so now kind of setting back up. Um, and I think it could drop as low as like 28 or something like that. But I do think it's going to make a higher low around here somewhere. And there's still the flow is pretty healthy in that sector. Um, I'll let you tell me if the charts are pretty healthy, but yeah, I still like a lot of what I see there. I think just patience sort of is what you want to look to there. Um, a lot going on with China with silver, a lot going on with the industrial applications of silver. So not just silver as just a metal you stack in your safe, but its actual use is important in technology too. Um, so yeah, looking for a higher low here, basically.
Um, 26 is always the number on silver, so that's where I would look for the higher low on that. Trying to
Yeah,
pull up a gold chart. I like both gold and silver currently. Um, but yeah, I mean it's which again, this is a good bounce off of what we were talking about. Like I don't fucking know. I can find you good gold or silver charts, so I lean on your perception of which one's gonna move better. Um, chart shaped silvers are I would prefer to invest in silver over gold because you're not going to have to buy a higher low in most cases. There's like two
yeah.
stocks on in the gold sector that are on my level, where there's probably like 6 or 7 silver stocks that are just on the floor. Well, I mean, one of them is on my list this week again. I love that one at $6, even with just the 8 read. So in general, I would rather silver go currently than gold, but they're both tradable, and I like them both as just as a continuation trade.
I mean, it's crazy. Gold's approaching oversold. As crazy as that sounds.
Well, I thought that a while ago, but you're tougher on that word.
Yeah, yeah, well, right. But yeah, so I do think that there's definitely a lot of potential for a good rally there. Uh, Copper did exactly what I talked about last week with the pullback. It's pulled back to $4, 406 right now. So this is a pretty good spot to look for a bounce in copper, and I actually prefer aluminum right now
You
over
mean
copper.
copper? You mean copper? That used to be
Yeah,
my favorite thing to say.
yeah. But yeah, so I think there's it's been a nice pullback, and just kind of looking for that sector to set back up. Just
Even more than
really
I
nice
mean, we
set
had
up there.
we had the aluminum what 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. You still see that
Yeah.
continuing?
Yes, I do. Yeah,
Uh,
I think China drives that a lot over the next 6 weeks or so.
yeah, because for me on
Um,
aluminum, that's one that I like. I like they have tradable range. I mean, we know the 1 and 2 I like.
yeah,
But the A1 it has tradable range. But we're at the top of the channel, so just curious if you see that going like to new levels, or if that's a more of a just a
I
short
do see
term
it go.
pop.
I see it going to new levels. I wouldn't call it a short term pop. I think it's maybe a midterm pop. I don't think it's like a long term super cycle or something. But no, I think it will sustain itself some
Interesting.
in those aluminum charts.
Okay.
The uranium uh, is popped 5% in that. That how futures work there. It's a little bit different. It's all sort of behind the scenes. You can't day trade a minute chart on uranium.
Yeah.
Um, but popped over 82, and still,
Yeah. Are we looking
to
for
me,
90?
yes, yeah, no. So looking for 92, that area. So there's a lot of range ahead for uranium, and we kind of know the names there.
Again, same thing as aluminum. It tradable range currently need to keep some for that bigger move.
Yeah,
Those two charts that I have two of them. Um, the other one I'm just kind of sitting in the newer ones, but the the divergence in those two are interesting.
Yes, no, I agree. So I mean, that's definitely something that's going to get some flow scrutiny. And lithium, kind of back in the dirt after the initial reaction um, to Trump, and I still just think there's that's your 3 to 5 year trade. Uh, I think you can double up any number of lithium charts from here, in my opinion.
Yeah, those are another ones that are just the bottoms are good to go. Nice,
Yeah.
nice. Do when do you see commodity? That's a good question. When do you see commodities as Q1 or middle of the year or end of the next year? And next year, I mean 2026.
Middle middle of the year and beyond, when we get some clarity on Trump infrastructure plans, I think that's what I would look for there. But I think we're in a sort of build
Yeah,
positions
yeah.
and rinse and repeat mode right now.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, let's get into some spy action. Running a little deep here.
Yep.
Um, I got that got a mid candle the other way. I think it was needed. I said Friday, man, professor's gonna nail these numbers, and I went golfing and came back, and it made it all the way down to my bottom. I was or real close to my bottom. So last week we had you had 601.31. I had 603.21. And we got right at 600. So the top went to you. I think we had a wick pretty much on your level pre-market one of the days. That had to be Monday because we weren't up there that long. And then you were 588.14. I was 582.65. And we ended up at 583.86. We were at your level when I turned off the computer and went golfing Friday. So in like a 4 hour time span, another $6 drop in SPY. Just sell off Friday. Kind of noticed it. When I did look at charts. Just a lot of give backs it seemed on Friday. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I was feeling like the guy with he shoots the 3 pointer and turns around, starts celebrating, and it rims out. But but for me it was just the having a little bit of a bearish outlook on Friday uh, did help me, and some of those moves down set up, and I had arm puts through the week, so and that did well for me. But yeah, so Spy, there's one contract that is driving the car right now to me, and it's March 520p, which they've really been piling into lately, sitting at about 200,000 open interest, about 40,000 more than the next contract, which there's a lot of just dead OI on some things. So it's the most relevant contract um, by far to me right now. And again, like I say about these, when you go that far out, um, add 20, 30, maybe $40, and I think that's your target for a market pullback. So 540, something like that is what I'm looking at.
I like it right now. This 50 on the daily kind of been the there was one big pullback, but kind of been the respected area last two pullbacks. So I'd be looking for that again. Still going to be a higher low, the 575 area.
Yeah.
And then you put it on volume profile. Yeah, 570. So yeah, I mean, healthy, needed, um, all that good stuff. ER is set up to do it. Um, and like I said earlier, there's going to be plenty to trade. It's just not going to be what you want. We're back to that again. Um, yeah.
So giving you some numbers like for this week, because I think that, I mean, the move to 540 is going to take some time, obviously.
Sure, sure.
But yeah, so this week, just looking for some places where I think this might catch. I'm going to say five. Uh, yeah, 573.26 for my low, and we do get a little bit of a rally in here at some point, but 593.63 top.
So you got $20. That's a pretty big range on SPY. All right, I got
Yeah,
I just like this shelf. That's 68. That's 83. I definitely think we're gonna pull back more. I'm gonna go five, and I think 575 is kind of a psychological thing for most people. So I'll go 574, 69. Shout out Goose on the bottom. I really thought we were going to have some kind of geopolitical event or just something in the news this week to justify the Friday selling off, right? Like the guy that
yeah,
Rangers stop loss knows. He knows. And it seemed like that. And I haven't really seen anything at all. So kind of still curious on why that was so drastic. I know we had numbers at the Wednesday, Thursday, but is it just the rate cut pouting that Powell was like, you can't fire me, and then came out and said, I'm not cutting rates in December. He didn't say it like that, but that's what I took from it. It
yeah.
just limits the upside. I don't think we're gonna wake up and have a push, and if we don't, I don't think we touch 590. So 589. We'll jack in the box this 99. So yeah. I mean, we're close on the top. I mean, you could get that spike, but you're in close on the bottom. So you're just a couple bucks wider than me. I'm not. I think the question is, uh, do we pull back inside of this other candle on week's end? That would be finishing below like 585 or so. And I'm a yes. I'll just throw
Yeah,
it
no,
out there.
I think the dominant setup to me right now, and a lot has a lot to do with the bonds and yields and all that, is the pop and fade. So I kind of see aggressive rally and then fade and then failed dip buying. I mean that's how they're getting retail right now is
Sure.
the assumption that intraday SPY is going to do the V recovery because it did that for almost a year. And I just think you're going to see that start to break down a bit. So yeah, no, I think we finish kind of in the doldrums unless Friday could rally a bit, maybe the bottom's Thursday, something like that. But I just think market turns a little sour late in the week to me.
Yeah. And if we do that, then expect a volume light week the following week for the holidays. I mean, that's where my
Yeah,
head's
yeah.
at for that. So perfect. You ready to get to work, P? We're a little long here today.
No, yeah, I'm good. Yep.
Perfect. Like and subscribe. Link somewhere, people.